You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that reveals facts, truth, research, and statistics and never messes around. We lay down the entire truth about everything regarding your Detroit and Michigan sports teams, no matter if it's good or bad. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no coddling, no pop culture, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com, follow us on Twitter at Michigan_Truth, and like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth. The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
And this is episode 5 of the midweek edition. Taylor Phillips and Ed Smith. Taylor Phillips, follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith at EdSmith313. Also listen to us on SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts via iTunes. Ed, let's get to it. Got a lot to talk about here.
We definitely do. It's a little bit of a loaded plate for us this week, but I think those are definitely the ones we can sink our teeth into the most.
Absolutely. So, let's start off with the Pistons here.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
According to NBA insider of ESPN, Adrian Wojnarowski, general manager Jeff Bauer of the Pistons is now the front runner for the team president. The Pistons are still exploring other options. So, since Stan Van Gundy is gone, Jeff Bauer is offered by Tom Gores an opportunity to be promoted from general manager to team president. So this is a juggling. This appears to be a juggling situation.
Yes, and also a situation which I kind of foresaw coming, as I mentioned to you in the reaction and fallout to Van Gundy's firing, that I could see a scenario happening because remember when names were floated around as potential places for Jeff Van Gundy, it didn't exactly specify whether it was the exact title he had or it was going to be a different role. It just mentioned generalization as the term front office. So that's when you saw the likes of Brent Berry and other names float around. But which made me believe in the background this was a way to help prepare Jeff Bauer and his ascension to this potential spot as president. So I think more than likely that could happen, but still you'll have, for an assistant or to help someone to offer advice, a general manager would still be needed. So I think a Brent Berry or of the sort could fit in that role quite well. Even though, if you were asking anybody else, the preferred fan choice could be a Chauncey Billups per se, but that doesn't happen. I wouldn't be fine. Like I mentioned before, I would not be upset with a Brent Berry choice.
Yeah, the Brent Berry rumor is what we've kept in mind as well. So we got Brent Berry, Jeff Bauer, the GM right now, and Chauncey Billups. Those are 3 nominees that we are still and have been looking at for the past 2 weeks now, at least. So
I will say,
yep.
Yeah, but now in quick segue in relation to that. The Pistons search for coach, it did get narrowed quite a bit because one of the names that we mentioned as a potential candidate, Mark Budenholzer, former coach of Atlanta Hawks, has been hired by the Milwaukee Bucks to officially become their next head coach. So he'll be replacing Jason Kidd officially, and that just takes one name off the list that I'm sure Pistons fans are hoping they can get their eyes on. But it seems to be at this point with recent developments out of Toronto as well that now with the apparent coach of the year, Dwayne Casey, who was shockingly fired, you would think the Pistons, if they were desperate enough or willing enough, they could try at least take a gander and make an offer at what Dwayne Casey could offer and see what he could bring. Even if you don't come away with him, I would still like the idea of hey, you at least attempted, you at least tried, you didn't just sit on your ass and did nothing. So, I mean, that's what the general feel of the aura. That's what's feeling like to some fans as we're seeing some of these offseason moves and how some of these things have worked out so far, i.e. the draft lottery not falling away, the Stan Van Gundy thing, knowing the daunting prospect of these contracts between Blake and Andre and Reggie, and still even paying Josh Smith. You think, Pistons fans, I'm sure they've been feeling overwhelmed with this apparent swarm of negativity, but things and momentum of other sorts can change on a dime. So I think if you get the right hire at the right spot, it will help renew a sense of optimism. Not fully all the way, but still make it feel a bit more optimistic that this season could be at least a little bit better than what we've seen last year. Not short term, but definitely for long term.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on that list as well. So, got some college basketball news to talk about.
For three, yes, sir.
The Michigan Wolverines men's basketball program and head coach John Beilein have talked about an extension possibly through the 2020 to 2021 season. So there's another hint. University of Michigan athletic director Warde Manuel wants both John Beilein and Jim Harbaugh both to stay until they retire. So this is an extension that they're possibly going to at least try to get done. They're probably going to get it done too, the way I see it in my crystal ball.
It would be more. Yeah, it will definitely be more than likely occurrence to happen, given the fact that they specified extending Beilein's contract past 2020, 2021. So I'm thinking they're on this. Their line of thinking is, okay, Coach B, assuming things hold steady, he can give us a go for another 4 or 5 years or so. In the meantime, we can use that to help set up a successor of any sort, so that when the time does come, we'll be all set up. So it's not like a whole 10-year type of thing where he's going to stay another 10 years. That would be just too much. But I think from what he's done so far, he's definitely more than earned this extension of sorts. He has earned the right to retire with his mantle, with his spot, and what he, as a coach representing the Michigan Wolverines, as a program, as the whole university itself. John Beilein has done a tremendous job in a decade since he's come over here, especially bookmarked in these past 6 years with, Elite Eights, and Sweet 16s, and Big Ten titles, and Final Fours, and even national championship appearances. No, they haven't gotten the title, but yet still, considering where this program was before he got there, and what the program has now become, especially in the tail end of the past 6 years of what he's been there with recruiting. And some people say that Beilein can't recruit, but if you've looked, he has sent far more ready talent to the NBA in the past few years than what Tom Izzo has done. Sorry, but that's fact. If you look at the names, you look at the amount of first-round pick after first-round pick after first-round pick that was coached by John Beilein, they got picked by a team in the NBA, you see the benefits of what he's done. So, once you give him more of that caliber of talent, you'll see the fruits of the labor of what he's been implementing, and now the sudden take of him not a sorts taking on a defensive coordinator to help advance to the 21st century should bring about a new level of appreciation, and was a definite factor into him getting this potential reward here. So I'm very much pleased how this whole thing is coming about with John Beilein. As for Jim Harbaugh, I understand what Ward is trying to say, but I will admit he's done a good job so far. I mean, you can't take away 2 10-win seasons in 3 years. I mean, a lot of programs are killed for that. But when it comes to the bare bones deal, you were hired at Michigan to A, beat your rivals, B, win big games, C, win championships. They won 1 or 2, forgetful bowl games. They got a couple of good, primetime games that they won under their belt. But when it came down to it, they've only won once in the past 3 years against Michigan State and Ohio State combined. So that's what all it boils down to. And no Big Ten titles, not even a Big Ten championship game appearance, let alone trying to play for a national championship. Say what you want about 2016 and 1 inch short or whatever, but the facts are facts. So while obviously, no, it's not time to put Harbaugh on the hot seat yet, suffice it to say, it's quite a stirring development when you notice of how comfortable fans are talking about the basketball coach these days as they are concerning the football coach. It's quite telling on how there's been not much of a complete rise to the top, so to speak, cream rise to the top for the football program, but also not so short of how an amazing job the basketball program has done in these past few years.
Let's get back to basketball before we touch back on Jim Harbaugh. The Pistons dropped all the way to number 42 in the NBA draft lottery back on Tuesday, and that's just because of bad karma via mediocrity due to the Pistons finishing 9th place in the Eastern Conference right before Stan Van Gundy got his ass fired, and Luke Kennard was at the podium.
And a nice parting gift of having to pay Blake Griffin $36 million in the near future. Good luck with that. Thanks, Stan. Thank you so much. Jesus. It was basically a perfect cap to a miserable season of sorts for Pistons fans. So, like I mentioned before, things you can hope for a better momentum shift, but you got to deal with the cards that were dealt with at the moment.
Yep. Now let's touch on Jim Harbaugh.
Touchdown, Michigan!
University of Michigan police closed their investigation of threats from former defensive end Elisei Mbemba to Jim Harbaugh on Twitter with no arrests or charges filed. So, you got to keep in mind, those are undetected threats that we actually saw. Like the types of threats, the type was undetected. The threat was semi-public. We just weren't able to detect what type of threat it was. All we read was on Twitter, "It's on tomorrow," and then that's when Mbemba received that message from the University of Michigan. He was suspended indefinitely, and pending further investigation. So,
what I could say about this particular issue with this subject matter, I think it was reported also that he was here to dealing with it, and then Moxley was dealing with the mental health issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, the health issues. Yes.
Yeah, so that could definitely be playing a role into his actions. I'm not excusing it, of course, but it would give a better general explanation of how this sudden occurrence just randomly happened out of nowhere, because you didn't hear anything about this kid, not a peep. So for them to all of a sudden go into tangent and start making
a little technical difficulties here.
And depending on what the level of public was, the fact that people were able to see it on Twitter, that's enough. That's public enough for me, and I'm sure the higher ups agreed as well. That's why he got that message from the school on the suspension immediately. So I appreciate how they handled it. It was swift. It was needed. As for Mbemba himself, I'm glad he didn't face any serious repercussions, but because I think what it appears to be from what we've seen, it was just he had a mental episode. And those things happen. It can happen to anybody at any given point in time. And if you want to relate it to what it is in basketball, I mean, look in the NBA. The two faces of that epidemic right now are what Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan. So even they can be affected. World-class athletes can be affected by something as trivial as mental health. And something that can be as detrimental and harmful and agonizing all at once. So anybody of any plane can go through any type of ailment. So, and this is just another example of it, exemplified here by the actions of this former player for the Wolverines.
Yep, absolutely. So that was easily handled by the university and its athletic department. So let's go to the other side of the in-state rivalry here.
Touchdown, MSU!
Valentine for the win!
Michigan State University will pay $500 million in lawsuit settlements to victims of the lifelong-imprisoned Dr. Larry Nassar. Now, $425 million, that's according to the Lansing Lansing State Journal and the Detroit Free Press. $425 million thereof will go to the current claimants, and the other $75 million would be set aside in a trust fund to protect any future claimants alleging sexual abuse by Nassar. So this is all sorted out better than we thought it would.
Yeah, I think it was rightly just. I mean, when you're concerned about the build and how long this whole entire shameful act had been going on, not just by the evil perpetrator, but the parent and subsequent cover-up by the school itself, and how long and how many victims, now, of course, now survivors, but how many people had been affected and had to go through these evil acts for so long, and some of those that were kept quiet because of it for so long didn't have a chance to lend their voice or speak out, and now they finally got their chance. No, this doesn't erase any or all of the horrible moments or feelings or incidents that happened, but I think it does bring some measure of closure, and it recognizes that responsibility must be, and can be, and should be, and needs to be taken on all accounts and all fronts to learn from the mistakes and hope to God nothing like this ever happens again.
Right. So that's going to be another one of our 5 questions that is at the end of our episode here. So that's that narrows us down to one team left to cover, and that's the Tigers.
That one is long gone.
The Tigers take 2 of 3 against the Cleveland Indians, who are 21-21. Thank God for Trevor Bauer, who shut out the Tigers 6-0, while Ryan Carpenter proves that he's not nearly ready for the majors yet. But it is part of the painful rebuild that the Tigers are starting to go through, even though they're very damn close to contending for an AL Comedy Central division crown, so to speak, in a very awful trash division. And fans are a lot of fans, understandably, are distracted by it, are drawn in by it, but they're only letting it fool them when their record shows that the Tigers are not good enough to even contend for an American League championships. They couldn't even win a playoff game, even if they win a wild card, for goodness sakes. And that's because it's the AL Comedy Central again. It's a crappy division.
Even worse, probably gets smoked in the wild card game. They wouldn't even get to the first round. They would fail horribly in the wild card game.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they will get blown out at least 9-0 or 9-2 or 11 something. They're going to play the Seattle Mariners again like they did last weekend at Comerica Park, but this one's going to be at Safeco Field, a 4-game series. Thursday and Friday at 10:10, Saturday at 9:10, Sunday at 4:10. The Tigers may be good at home, but they suck on the road.
Well, that's good, because we need to keep this march to 100 losses going, so they picked the right time and going back on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was pretty damn quick. Almost only 19 minutes in.
Wow.
Let's do 5 questions already, shall we?
No problem. Just go ahead and let them rip, Taylor.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1, what other options could the Pistons be looking at for team president? Tough
I
one,
have a name that could be seen as a wild card. But again, it could be another fan theory, another fan hopeful. But if he's available, I wouldn't mind them taking a shot at David Griffin, the former Cavs GM, who I think deserves as much credit as anyone as helping making the moves that led to the Cavaliers getting that championship in 2016. I thought he was tremendously fucked over by Dan Gilbert, and hey, I think he would deserve a chance to not only prove to himself, put the stick in that asshole Gilbert, and what better way to do that would be a division rival, and not just any division rival, a city that he's from and contributes to greatly in Detroit. So even if it was president or GM, I wouldn't mind them taking a stab at David Griffin.
Next question.
Question number 2. If Jeff Bauer is promoted to team president, could he still be the general manager as well? And if not, then who takes the GM position?
That could be a possibility, but if you're also seeing all these names, these other names, like the Brent Berries and such that have been floated out there, it will lead me to believe that they are going to, yes, they'll still promote Jeff Bauer, but they still want to have that subsidiary beside him as well, as to help him out with this process here. So I could still see it more than likely to be as Bauer who get promoted to team president, but they'll still have a general manager separately to go alongside him. As to who it could be, I've mentioned Brent Berry. David Griffin could be another wonderful option, but we'll just get to see how the chips fall.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Question number 3. Should John Beilein and Jim Harbaugh stay at U of M until they retire?
John Beilein, unquestionably, yes. There's no further debate about that. Jim Harbaugh, I know he wants to, but in terms of the answer, should he needs to prove that he can by winning some damn games first, as in big national marquee games, as in games to take you to a Big Ten championship, as in games to take you to a national championship, as in the damn national championship itself. So he's Jim, old khaki pants, as Shannon Sharp likes to say. He's got some ways to go before he gets to the status of where John Beilein is right now, and that's saying something considering where we were when Harbaugh came into town. Some people were suggesting that maybe Beilein should be fired, and now here we are 3 years later. Things have done a complete fucking 180, and I love it.
Well, speaking of those teams, they include the Michigan State Spartans and the Ohio State Buckeyes, and the Iowa Hawkeyes, too, for Jim Harbaugh and his Michigan Wolverines football team.
Next question.
Question number 4. Speaking of Harbaugh, should there have been charges filed and or arrests made for Elise Mbasi's threats to Harbaugh? I don't think so, to be honest with you.
No, it wasn't. And thankfully, after everything was explained in detail, the reasons why behind, and everything was out and clear, and all the facts were out, thankfully no arrests were made, which could have made this an even more awkward and even worse situation than it already was. I'm glad an understanding was made. I've already alluded to before about how bad mental health can affect anyone in any walk of life. It's just a bad recent example of it, but I'm glad it was handled as excellently a way as you could. I applaud the school for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Finally, question number 5. Is $500 million enough in lawsuit settlements to Nassar's victims? I would imagine.
I kind of don't like the phrasing of certain questions like that because it seems like, you can put a price on just about anything. When you go through something as horrific and traumatizing and scarring as what those young women went through, I don't know if there's anything that you can put a price on per se. But in terms of marking a step in this dark chapter in their lives is, as close as you can possibly get, without being completely closed. I think there's a sense of closure to that, and I think they're more than content of this being a symbolic representation of what a closure to an awful, painful moment in their lives for good.
That's a good way to put it. So that wraps up our 5 questions segment. So to our entire audience, if you want to answer those 5 questions, just replay the segment portion of this episode and answer them the best you can without going out of line. So again, that was quick. Just a short 25 minutes in the can of episode 5 of the midweek edition of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. Before we sign off, though, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is searching for a wider audience that is fans of sports, especially our teams in the state of Michigan. So please spread the word about the Michigan Sports Truth podcast, its Facebook page, Its Twitter handle at Michigan_Truth. Its Spreaker feed, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts via iTunes. Ed, great job. Excellent job as always. We'll talk to you next week, Wednesday. Keep those alarms and reminders set.
No problem, Taylor. You take care of an excellent one yourself.
Thanks. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips and Ed Smith at EdSmith313. We'll talk to you next week on episode 6 of the midweek edition of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
Mission complete.